Hey guys, tonight we step quietly through the creaky wooden door of a medieval alchemist's workshop, hidden deep in a sleepy alley of a forgotten town. Dust particles float lazily in a soft beam of sunlight streaming through grimy windows, illuminating shelves crammed with glass vials, delicate copper scales, and mysterious scrolls tied in velvet ribbons. As you take a gentle step inside, the rich aroma of dried herbs, sulfur, and burnt paper wafts slowly toward you, tickling your senses and coaxing your mind toward restful curiosity. Amid the gentle chaos sits the alchemist himself, hunched comfortably over a worn oak table. Scribbling slowly onto parchment, he barely glances up, so absorbed in his quiet quest that the outside world might as well be a distant dream. Tonight, you'll witness something curious, a calm search for gold, immortality, and perhaps something even more elusive, understanding. But let's be real, you probably wouldn't survive very long here. After all, there's no Wi-Fi, no snacks, unless you're into powdered bat wings, and definitely no reliable fire exits. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, why not comment down below where you're tuning in from, along with your local time? It's always fascinating to see how far our sleepy little stories can reach. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You gently observe the alchemist as he shifts in his creaky wooden stool, adjusting a heavy, embroidered cloak that has seen better days. Perhaps a few centuries ago, he carefully places a tiny piece of lead onto a scale so sensitive it trembles under his breath. Tonight, he's trying again, calmly, patiently, to turn this dull, heavy metal into shining gold. But why gold? Why not silver or platinum, metals just as valuable and surely less fussy? The answer, you suspect, might be hidden not just in the promise of wealth, but in symbolism deeper and gentler than it appears. To medieval minds, gold wasn't merely currency. It was perfection itself, pure, untarnishable, eternal. And if you're aiming for immortality, well, why not start with perfecting your materials? Of course, medieval alchemists didn't invent this calm quest from scratch. They gently borrowed it from ancient Egyptians and Greeks, who'd been whispering their own soothing secrets about gold's magical properties for millennia. Gold represented the sun, strength, divinity, a tiny slice of eternity you could hold in your hand. And so, the alchemist before you isn't just tinkering quietly with metals. He's patiently, slowly, carefully trying to capture a little bit of heaven on earth. As you wander deeper into his workspace, your eyes land softly on curious tools lined up in neat rows. There are fragile glass retorts, round-bottomed vessels once gleaming, but now clouded by countless gentle fires. On shelves stacked high, you spot strange ingredients, some labeled clearly in Latin script, others marked mysteriously with symbols that seem vaguely threatening, but reassuringly sleepy at the same time. Your host, the quiet alchemist, pauses now, picking up a weathered book with pages crackling like dry leaves. The script within, faded yet beautifully drawn, instructs him calmly on the most meticulous process imaginable. Heat, cool, wait, heat again, wait a little longer, repeat gently until the metal finally decides to become something better. Watching this cycle, you begin to understand the subtle humor inherent in this practice. alchemy was, at its heart, the world's most complicated way to procrastinate. Yet surprisingly, this gentle persistence wasn't futile. These long, calm experiments often led to unexpected yet sleepy discoveries: improved metal alloys, new dyes, even the basics of chemistry hiding behind the curtains of mysticism. And yet, historians still argue whether medieval alchemists truly believed they'd one day turn lead into gold, or if it was all a gentle metaphor for spiritual enlightenment. Perhaps it was both. Humans, after all, have always had a soothing knack for wanting something practical, yet slightly magical at the same time. You look again at your alchemist friend as he stirs gently, utterly absorbed, into a bubbling liquid that releases slow, rhythmic puffs of smoke. He's murmuring quietly under his breath, reciting incantations that sound oddly like grocery lists, mixed in with Latin poetry and a few phrases that might just be complaining about the weather. This man clearly has all night, maybe all year. After all, medieval Europe wasn't exactly buzzing with distractions. No phones ringing, no Instagram feeds to scroll, no Netflix binge to tempt him from his patient, mildly absurd labors. The day slides gently into dusk outside, shadows lengthening softly across the room, deepening the quiet around you. Candles are lit carefully, their warm, flickering glow bouncing lazily off copper pots and crystal flasks. If gold is perfection, then this softly lit room, rich with gentle absurdity, might be the closest anyone gets tonight. Quietly amused by the thought, you step further back into the comforting shadows, watching as the alchemist sighs contentedly, jotting a quick note into his log. The page already filled with cryptic diagrams, numbers, and gentle frustration. Maybe tonight's the night, he thinks calmly. Or maybe not. Either way, the quest goes on, as gentle and relentless as the flickering candlelight. And perhaps that's the true gold he seeks. Not wealth, nor fame, but the soft, sweet certainty that there's always tomorrow to quietly begin again. The alchemist's patient by the light of 1,000 candles. As you continue quietly observing the alchemist's patient routine, a new question gently arises. Why, beyond the golden gleam of wealth, did medieval alchemists calmly set their hearts on immortality itself? With a soft chuckle, you realize that while riches were surely tempting, the allure of eternal life promised an even more enchanting comfort. Endless tomorrows to leisurely repeat their gentle quests. Immortality has always had a certain sleepy charm, tugging softly at human imagination across ages and continents. But tonight, nestled in the cozy chaos of this alchemist's workspace, the notion seems especially appealing. After all, if life is mostly puttering quietly around a lab in candlelit evenings, who wouldn't want that blissful existence to stretch on forever? Yet the pursuit wasn't solely about endless years. It was about quality. Medieval life, after all, was rarely luxurious or easy. Historians still argue whether alchemists genuinely thought they could live forever, or if they simply sought to extend their days in peace, comfort, and gentle reflection. Perhaps eternal life was a bit like a medieval spa day, something soothingly aspirational, yet ultimately quite vague. You glance toward the softly illuminated manuscripts that lie scattered across the table, each filled with elegant script and detailed drawings, often slightly smudged from frequent consultation. Some pages promise youthful vigor, glowing skin, robust health, all through mystical elixirs, gently simmered potions, and carefully measured ingredients like powdered pearls, saffron threads, or something mysteriously called dragon's blood, which you secretly suspect was just medieval marketing fluff. Speaking of marketing, medieval alchemists were quietly clever in appealing to their patrons, kings, queens, nobles. They all calmly craved more time, preferably without wrinkles. If an alchemist promised softly glowing skin along with eternal youth, funding suddenly became quite generous indeed. And the alchemist, no fool himself, understood perfectly that the secret to immortality, at least financially, was in gently cultivating curiosity without ever fully satisfying it. Still, some alchemists genuinely believed immortality was achievable, softly blending religious faith, ancient myths, and proto-scientific experimentation into their soothing pursuit. They calmly pointed to biblical figures like Methuselah, who supposedly lived a gently staggering 969 years, likely spending most of it forgetting birthdays and misplacing keys. They drew inspiration from legends like the Fountain of Youth, quietly hoping that their bubbling potions and mysterious powders might just lead them gently to eternal vigor. Even more fascinating, medieval scholars carefully studied ancient texts, treating Greek philosophers and Egyptian mystics like soft-spoken celebrities, trusting that wisdom and truth were hidden in these gentle whispers from the past. Texts from Hermes Trismegistus, a mythical sage blending Greek and Egyptian traditions, promised immortality through spiritual enlightenment, a gently reassuring concept that comforted medieval minds, like a warm blanket on a chilly evening. In this way, immortality was never simply about living forever. It was about achieving gentle perfection, a calm state of being where disease, pain, and even age ceased to matter. You gently ponder the sheer optimism hidden within this ambition, recognizing a softly humorous aspect of humanity. No matter how often reality gently taps us on the shoulder, whispering that immortality might be just out of reach, we keep dreaming, hoping, quietly concocting our next elaborate experiment. Yet, as comforting as eternal life sounds, medieval alchemists weren't completely naive. Many quietly acknowledged their limitations, hinting through veiled writings and carefully crafted metaphors that the pursuit itself was valuable, even beautiful, regardless of whether immortality was ever gently captured. Maybe immortality, you realize, wasn't the end goal, but a softly glowing ideal, pushing humanity gently forward, inspiring new ideas, new methods, and occasionally useful accidents. As if on cue, your alchemist carefully lifts a bubbling flask off the gentle flame, examining the softly swirling mixture. It shimmers subtly under the candlelight, a color halfway between gold and sunset, as if quietly mocking his ambitions. He smiles faintly, clearly accustomed to gentle disappointment mingled with quiet hope. After all, tomorrow promises another peaceful evening to refine his technique, another gentle experiment, another whisper of a chance at eternity. While immortality's allure is timeless, it had its gentle critics, too. Medieval theologians quietly argued against the idea, pointing out with sleepy annoyance that eternal life was God's business, and humans meddling softly in divine realms was simply poor etiquette, like borrowing sugar from a neighbor without asking first. Yet alchemists deftly sidestepped these theological rebukes by framing their pursuits as merely enhancing God's creation, softly perfecting their own health longevity, and spiritual understanding, without rudely demanding an outright infinity. You watch as your alchemist carefully records tonight's gentle failures alongside hopeful notes for tomorrow's attempts. Every experiment was carefully documented, creating pages of detailed logs, blending chemistry, poetry, philosophy, and occasionally frustrated doodles of little medieval stick figures shrugging gently in defeat. This meticulous documentation quietly contributed to the sleepy birth of modern scientific method, though your alchemist friend probably wouldn't appreciate being reminded of that just yet. For now, he simply enjoys the soothing ritual of slow experimentation, the calming rhythm of gentle disappointment followed swiftly by renewed hope, as reliable as sunrise. Softly amused by humanity's persistent optimism, you consider how immortality, in practice, might actually feel. Would eternal life mean infinite leisure, or merely infinite chores? Would alchemists calmly embrace endless years, or quietly panic at the prospect of infinite Mondays? These playful musings linger gently as shadows deepen across the workshop, enveloping everything in comforting stillness. Outside, the world softly slips toward sleep, stars slowly emerging, quietly sparkling above ancient rooftops. Inside, your alchemist friend yawns gently, putting aside manuscripts and potions, preparing to call it a night. Perhaps immortality can wait just one more evening. In this softly lit room, watching this gentle pursuit of eternity, you recognize something comforting and quietly humorous about humanity itself. No matter how many centuries pass, no matter how far science advances, people will always calmly chase after something just out of reach. Gold, eternal life, perfect coffee, quietly hopeful that the next gentle experiment brings them closer, even if just by one softly shimmering drop. What do you think? What would you ask the alchemist? Please share your thoughts below. Also, please subscribe so you never miss any of our dreamy adventures. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, dream kindly, and remember, even if immortality remains elusive, life's small comforts are our gentle treasures. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep seeking those magical moments in everyday life. Thank you for joining me on this enchanting journey through time. Now, drifting further into the comforting clutter of the alchemist's workspace, your attention gently settles onto the manuscripts strewn across the table, mystical recipes promising eternal youth and vitality. Carefully, you lean in closer, the soft, flickering candlelight casting curious shadows across each lovingly inked line. The handwriting is elaborate, occasionally looping into elegant flourishes, suggesting an alchemist who clearly enjoyed the calming rhythm of ink upon parchment almost as much as mixing potions. These recipes, you soon notice, range from mildly curious to outright bizarre, each seeming more peculiar and gently absurd than the last. One scroll casually advises brewing crushed emeralds with morning dew collected at sunrise, presumably not available at your local medieval convenience store. Another, remarkably serene in tone, instructs the reader to gather moonbeams during specific lunar cycles. Historians still debate whether these whimsical instructions were genuinely believed, cleverly symbolic, or just a gentle prank between scholars. Softly turning another page, you uncover one of the more peculiar recipes yet, a potion described as the elixir of eternal calm. Intrigued, you scan its delicate instructions. Powdered unicorn horn a medieval bestseller, despite the slight inconvenience of unicorns not existing. Gently simmered rose petals harvested exclusively by left-handed maidens, and a pinch of ground pearls collected by moonlight. Clearly, the authors of these texts possessed vivid imaginations, even if their practical sourcing skills left something gently to be desired. And yet, amid these sleepy absurdities, a quiet practicality occasionally peeks through. Many of these potions' ingredients, such as lavender, chamomile, and valerian root, are gently recognized today as calming herbs that indeed promote relaxation and restful sleep. Perhaps immortality, at least to medieval minds, was simply about learning to deeply relax, eternal life as the ultimate endless nap. The softly humorous absurdity of these recipes raises another gently amusing observation. Medieval alchemists seemed calm, yet determined to embrace complexity. Why brew a potion with easily gathered ingredients when you could gently complicate the recipe with rare minerals, mythical creatures, or plants harvested only at impossible times? Perhaps this quiet complexity was part of the charm, a soothing dance of preparation, measurement, and gentle anticipation, adding meaning to their carefully extended lives. While these recipes are undeniably whimsical, they weren't entirely without merit. Hidden gently within these seemingly nonsensical instructions were genuine experiments in pharmacology. Medieval alchemists discovered through trial and error that certain plants could ease ailments, prolong health, and improve quality of life, even if unicorn powder proved elusive. Indeed, as you read calmly through these texts, it becomes gently apparent that medieval herbalism subtly laid foundations for modern medicine, quietly weaving science through mysticism. You smile softly, turning another fragile page. Here, a quiet commentary scribbled in the margin catches your eye, a gentle note from one alchemist to another, suggesting politely that the addition of dragon scales was perhaps more poetic than practical. This small interaction warmly reminds you that these alchemists weren't mere isolated dreamers. They formed gently interconnected networks, exchanging ideas, recipes, and quiet humor across borders and generations. Indeed, throughout medieval Europe, alchemical manuscripts traveled far and wide, carefully copied by hand, passed gently from one patient enthusiast to another. Each alchemist softly added their own discoveries, corrections, and whimsical notes, gradually creating a calm legacy that spanned centuries. In a world without internet or instant messaging, this gentle, sleepy exchange of ideas was their comforting equivalent of medieval social media, albeit with fewer cat videos and significantly more powdered gemstones. Yet, despite the whimsical ingredients and gently humorous impossibilities, these alchemists remained sincerely devoted. You can almost see them hunched over candlelit desks night after night, calmly convinced that somewhere amidst these peculiar mixtures was the key to immortality, or at least a very pleasant tea. Perhaps immortality, you realize with gentle amusement, was simply the comforting belief that there was always something more to discover. Gazing quietly around the workspace, you sense the cozy appeal of this endless search. After all, a world without mystery might become gently boring, a fate possibly worse than not achieving immortality. Perhaps medieval alchemists intuitively understood this, and their gently absurd recipes served as poetic reminders to keep curiosity alive, even if it meant patiently grinding pearls by moonlight. Quietly amused, you look back at your alchemist friend. He's carefully adding ingredients from small jars lined neatly along his shelves. You gently notice labels with whimsical names: mermaid's breath, likely sea salt, phoenix ashes, possibly volcanic minerals, and your favorite, simply labeled mystery powder, because apparently every medieval pantry needed a touch of intrigue. He pauses briefly, consulting his recipe with serene focus, then gently sprinkles a pinch of something softly glittering into his flask. With meticulous care, he stirs, smiles faintly, and jots down careful notes. Whether from success or gentle disappointment, you can't quite tell. Yet you sense he genuinely enjoys this quiet dance, this calming blend of science and fantasy, content to repeat it endlessly, gently chasing immortality's ever-distant promise. With that thought, you softly close the manuscript, careful not to disturb the fragile parchment. The alchemist hardly notices your quiet presence. He's calmly lost once again in his serene experiments, softly humming something pleasant under his breath. You quietly appreciate the beauty in this gentle persistence, recognizing humanity's eternal willingness to chase gentle impossibilities, softly amused at the quiet triumphs hidden beneath apparent failures. And as the candle gently flickers, casting sleepy shadows across the comforting clutter of the workshop, you realize that perhaps these mystical recipes weren't truly about achieving immortality. Instead, they provided a calming rhythm, a soothing ritual, a gentle reassurance that life, endlessly complicated and humorously unpredictable, could still hold wonder and enchantment, even if unicorn powder was forever out of reach. Stepping softly out through a small back door, you find yourself quietly entering the Alchemist's garden, a peaceful sanctuary hidden from the bustling medieval streets outside. Here, tucked safely behind stone walls, gently warmed by the fading sunlight, lies a garden so neatly arranged it seems plucked straight from a calming medieval painting. As you slowly stroll along winding paths lined with gently swaying herbs, a soft breeze carries toward you the gentle aromas of lavender, mint, and chamomile, each fragrance blending dreamily into the next. You pause, breathing deeply, the scents gently washing over you like a comforting wave. This garden is no ordinary medieval plot. It's a carefully curated pharmacy of leafy wonders, meticulously grown by your alchemist friend. Each plant here holds quiet significance, chosen specifically for its supposed power to sustain youth, preserve health, or perhaps even nudge the soul gently toward immortality. At your feet, clusters of rosemary stretch softly toward the sunlight, their leaves traditionally associated with improved memory, a gently humorous hope for alchemists often prone to forgetting exactly which mystical ingredient they had just added to their latest potion. Beside it, lemon balm quietly rustles, known for its calming effect on restless minds, ideal perhaps for nights when immortality experiments had become just slightly too stressful. Farther along the path, you notice pots carefully arranged in rows, containing gently flourishing plants labeled with charmingly cryptic Latin names. Mandragora officinarum, the legendary mandrake, sits proudly, its wide leaves shading roots medieval alchemists believed had mystical properties capable of granting vitality. However, you recall gently that folklore also insisted mandrakes would scream loudly when pulled from the earth, a scenario likely not conducive to a relaxing evening garden stroll. Next to the mandrake, neat rows of sage grow quietly, their velvety leaves shimmering softly beneath the last gentle rays of sunlight. Medieval wisdom suggested sage could prolong life and improve health, an idea softly echoed even in modern herbalism. As you gently brush your fingers over its textured leaves, releasing its earthy fragrance, you quietly appreciate the sleepy persistence of this belief, still subtly lingering centuries later. The careful layout of this garden gently reveals the dual nature of medieval alchemical practice, part mysticism, part pragmatism. Among the exotic plants, there are calm, sensible herbs with well-known medicinal properties that modern science quietly confirms. Historians still debate whether alchemists genuinely believed every magical claim, or if the mystical allure simply made gardening quietly more interesting. Perhaps immortality was secondary to the calming pleasures of carefully tending plants on sunny afternoons. Continuing softly along your path, you notice a carefully shaded corner dedicated entirely to violets. Medieval alchemists gently revered these delicate flowers, believing that drinking violet-infused water promoted eternal youth and enhanced beauty. Whether true or not, you gently appreciate their optimism and secretly wonder if medieval beauty regimes were simply elaborate excuses to spend more peaceful afternoons gardening. Nearby, a wooden trellis gently supports climbing vines, heavy with hops. These cheerful plants, you recall with a sleepy smile, weren't just intended for brewing calming ales. Hops were prized by alchemists for their supposed restorative and preservative properties, quietly ironic considering medieval life expectancy wasn't tea exactly extended by regular beer consumption. Still, the soothing effect of a mild ale after a long night's experimentation likely felt close enough to immortality for most medieval minds. As evening gently deepens into twilight, shadows lengthening softly around the garden, you spot clusters of foxgloves. These tall, bell-shaped flowers, while beautiful, were quietly feared and respected. Medieval alchemists calmly understood their medicinal potential, yet also knew of their powerful and dangerous properties. Soft reminders that nature's beauty sometimes hides a quiet danger. You decide gently that admiration from a safe distance is probably best. In another calm corner, rows of lavender bushes sway gently, their purple blossoms releasing their sweet, relaxing fragrance into the cooling night air. Medieval alchemists loved lavender for its softly soothing qualities, believing it could ease anxiety and extend restful sleep. Standing quietly among these fragrant bushes, you realize immortality might not mean much if one couldn't enjoy deep, calming rest along the way. At the far end of the garden, nestled gently beneath a sprawling oak, stands a stone bench, worn smooth by countless peaceful contemplations. You softly sit, the stone cool beneath your fingers, the garden softly rustling around you. From this quiet vantage, the garden seems less a pharmacy and more a gentle sanctuary, a sleepy refuge carefully cultivated for reflection, curiosity, and perhaps even gentle amusement. Here, you quietly understand why medieval alchemists spent countless hours carefully tending these gardens. Beyond mysticism or medicinal hopes, gardens offered gentle reassurance, proof of life's enduring beauty, quiet complexity, and comforting predictability. Perhaps this calm rhythm of planting, watering, and nurturing gave them a soothing sense of control in a chaotic medieval world. You glance back toward the softly glowing windows of the workshop where your alchemist friend is still gently at work. Perhaps tonight's potion will prove successful, or perhaps not. Either way, you suspect he'll find comfort here tomorrow, quietly strolling through his garden, gently pruning and cultivating his own little slice of earthly immortality. Feeling softly content, you rise slowly from the bench, brushing petals from your clothing. Twilight has fully enveloped the garden now, shadows melting into darkness. You take a last, calming breath, savoring the mingled fragrance of herbs, flowers, and quiet dreams of eternal youth. With gentle footsteps, you begin your slow walk back toward the workshop, carrying with you a sleepy understanding of immortality's quiet appeal. Perhaps immortality was simply this: peaceful evenings, gentle strolls, and sleepy routines repeated endlessly. A life measured softly in blossoms and fragrances rather than years. You gently slip back through the workshop door, leaving behind the garden's comforting whispers, returning calmly to the world of bubbling potions and softly glowing candles. But you know you'll carry the quiet enchantment of that garden with you, a gentle reminder that sometimes life's true magic quietly blooms just outside our door, softly waiting for us to notice. Stepping quietly back inside, you notice the alchemist has shifted his attention, now gently examining a book that seems particularly worn, its cover softened by decades, perhaps even centuries, of thoughtful handling. Curious, you approach softly, glancing down at pages filled with elegantly inked illustrations and intricate diagrams depicting an object both legendary and elusive: the philosopher's stone. The alchemist's fingers gently trace the outlines of the image, his expression serene yet quietly intense. For medieval alchemists, this softly glowing stone wasn't simply another fanciful quest. It was considered the crowning achievement, the gentle pinnacle of alchemical knowledge. According to softly whispered legends, the philosopher's stone could not only turn base metals into gold, but grant immortality itself, gently healing wounds, diseases, and perhaps even reversing time. Of course, historians still argue about the true nature of this mythical stone. Was it purely symbolic, a gentle metaphor for spiritual transformation? Or did medieval alchemists genuinely believe they could create this softly shimmering marvel? Perhaps it was both, the stone quietly embodying humanity's soothing tendency to chase dreams that dance gently just beyond the horizon of possibility. The pages before you softly rustle as the alchemist turns them carefully, revealing more detailed illustrations. Here, you see depictions of ancient furnaces, glassware delicately curved, and softly bubbling liquids flowing gently through intricate vessels. The stone itself, depicted as softly luminous, seems almost alive, quietly pulsing with gentle energy. Beside it, careful notes describe alchemical procedures with meticulous instructions. Heat slowly, cool gently, repeat patiently, suggesting alchemy might secretly have been the world's calmest cooking show. In medieval Europe, the philosopher's stone became softly legendary through works attributed to famous alchemists like Nicolas Flamel, who quietly claimed to have created this magical object, gently fueling centuries of hopeful speculation. Flamel, a humble Parisian bookseller, was said to have stumbled upon an ancient manuscript containing mysterious instructions. Over decades of patient experimentation, he reportedly unlocked the stone's secrets. quietly achieving immense wealth, and, according to whispers, eternal life itself. As you imagine Flamel softly scribbling notes in his quiet Parisian home, you gently consider the sleepy irony. Centuries later, no solid evidence proves Flamel ever achieved immortality or created gold, yet his name persists, eternally famous for quietly chasing the impossible. Perhaps in a way, he found immortality after all, gently preserved not by magical potions, but by humanity's soothing love for a good story. Your alchemist friend pauses thoughtfully at a page containing an elaborate diagram labeled Opus Magnum, the great work. This gentle concept was central to medieval alchemy, encompassing the entire journey toward creating the Philosopher's Stone. It wasn't simply about results, but gently emphasized the process itself, quietly suggesting that true enlightenment, and perhaps immortality, came through patient, peaceful transformation over countless evenings spent softly stirring mixtures by candlelight. Smiling softly, you realize the Philosopher's Stone was perhaps less about creating something tangible and more about capturing a gentle state of perpetual hope, a quiet reassurance that tomorrow could always offer another chance, another careful attempt at something wonderful. Alchemists, quietly persistent, found comfort in this gentle optimism, soothed by the softly flickering possibility of discovering something extraordinary. This gentle hopefulness also explains why the Philosopher's Stone persisted not only in Europe, but across cultures and centuries. From ancient China's gently glowing pill of immortality to India's softly whispered elixirs of life, humanity has always quietly dreamed of eternal transformation. The idea of a magical object granting endless tomorrows seemed universally comforting, gently transcending borders, beliefs, and languages. Yet, softly humorous skepticism quietly persisted alongside belief. Medieval alchemical texts often gently advised caution, subtly acknowledging that chasing the Philosopher's Stone was risky, not only financially, but emotionally. Some manuscripts gently warned that the stone might be metaphorical, representing spiritual enlightenment rather than literal gold or immortality. Even then, alchemists calmly persisted, quietly deciding that pursuing something impossible was better than chasing nothing at all. Glancing again at your alchemist friend, you notice his gentle amusement. He quietly jots down careful notes, perhaps well aware of the softly humorous contradictions within his quest. After all, the quest itself had already provided quiet riches, knowledge, community, gentle excitement. Perhaps, he reflects calmly, the Philosopher's Stone truly exists only in those softly glowing moments of patient discovery. Quietly amused by this gentle insight, you softly reflect on the soothing persistence of these legends. After all, modern stories like Harry Potter still borrow gently from the mythology of the Philosopher's Stone, proving humanity's sleepy love for quiet mysteries remains timeless. Whether medieval alchemists achieved their goal hardly matters. What endures is the softly glowing allure of chasing dreams that gently tease the edges of possibility. As the evening wears gently onward, you watch the alchemist close the ancient book carefully, softly wrapping it in velvet cloth before placing it back on a high shelf. Perhaps tomorrow he'll try again, gently mixing ingredients, patiently waiting for miracles that quietly refuse to appear. Yet tonight, he seems perfectly content, softly smiling as he extinguishes a nearby candle, leaving the room bathed in warm, comforting shadows. You step back, gently preparing to leave the alchemist to his peaceful contemplation. The room feels quietly serene, the legend of the philosopher's stone gently echoing through softly fading candlelight, reminding you that sometimes the gentlest dreams hold the deepest truths. Maybe the stone was always about the quiet joy of the chase, a softly shimmering reminder that curiosity, patience, and gentle wonder are the real treasures in life. Turning quietly toward the door, you softly glance back once more. The alchemist sits comfortably, lost gently in thought, softly illuminated by moonlight. Immortality might always remain just out of reach. Yet tonight, in this softly glowing workshop, it feels gently attainable, perhaps as simple and comforting as believing in something quietly impossible. As you linger quietly in the shadows of the alchemist's workshop, your eyes drift gently towards signs of past experiments scattered around. Small scorch marks on the wooden tabletop, a faint stain from spilled liquids, long dried and cracked glassware, stacked carefully out of sight. Each of these softly humorous mishaps tells a story, whispering gently about the quiet chaos hidden within the calm persistence of medieval alchemy. Alchemical experiments, while gently meticulous, often went quietly astray. Even now, historians softly debate whether medieval alchemists truly believed every experiment would yield gold or immortality, or if some were simply embracing a gentle curiosity, knowing well that pleasant accidents were bound to happen. Indeed, these small failures, these quietly amusing misadventures, often led to discoveries that softly nudged humanity forward, though rarely in directions alchemists intended. Take, for instance, the softly amusing case of distilled alcohol. While alchemists were gently heating substances to separate impurities, they stumbled quietly onto methods for producing stronger spirits. They certainly weren't Titaru seeking gin or brandy, yet they calmly embraced the unintended consequence of creating drinks that would softly warm medieval taverns for centuries to come. Perhaps immortality was elusive, but a comforting nightcap. Achieved. In another quiet corner, your gaze falls upon a small collection of minerals, neatly arranged, yet bearing traces of past gentle mishandlings. Some softly shimmer with a metallic gleam. Others are quietly powdered, evidence of patient yet unsuccessful attempts at transformation. Yet, these minerals often had hidden value. While failing softly to produce gold, alchemists inadvertently discovered new alloys, gently improving metal strength, paving the way softly toward advances in metallurgy, armor making, and even medieval cookware. Your alchemist friend, seemingly aware of these gently humorous ironies, carefully makes notes in his ledger, documenting his quiet mishaps with humble amusement. Alchemy, he softly understood, was as much about calmly embracing failure as achieving success, a gentle balance between hope, patience, and quiet laughter at life's softly amusing unpredictability. And then, softly shifting your attention, you notice traces of another accidental discovery. Pigments. Medieval alchemists, in their gentle quest for gold and immortality, often produced vibrant dyes and colors by accident. A softly humorous example was Prussian blue, a vivid pigment that emerged from alchemical mishaps centuries later, yet rooted gently in similar experiments. These unintended outcomes quietly transformed art, decorating medieval manuscripts, and Renaissance paintings, softly enriching culture without the slightest hint of immortality, except perhaps for the artworks themselves. Indeed, medieval alchemy softly tiptoed along the gentle line separating mystical questing from scientific discovery, often gently blurring the two. Historians still debate if alchemists saw these gentle mishaps as failures or quietly recognized their value. Perhaps the truth was a calming blend of both, a soothing acknowledgement that life's greatest discoveries often occur softly, almost accidentally. Quietly reflecting on this, you gently wonder how medieval alchemists managed the emotional ups and downs of their work. Failure after failure could softly discourage even the most patient dreamer. Yet, medieval alchemical texts calmly encouraged persistence, gently reassuring readers that each failed experiment was simply another gentle step toward enlightenment. Perhaps immortality wasn't tea found in potions, but in quietly learning to embrace life's endless cycle of small, softly humorous disappointments. As the evening gently deepens, your alchemist friend softly stirs yet another liquid mixture, its soft glow reflecting gently upon his thoughtful face. Watching him quietly, you sense a peaceful acceptance. Failure isn't something to fear, but softly welcome, a comforting companion in his gentle quest. Tomorrow, another experiment. Tonight, quiet appreciation for the softly humorous truth that chasing immortality might forever remain calmly out of reach. A gentle clinking sound draws your attention once more as your alchemist friend rearranges his tools. You softly notice an odd instrument, a primitive thermometer, its existence another gently accidental consequence of alchemical exploration. Early alchemists, striving to gently control heat precisely, stumbled upon devices that would softly evolve into essential scientific instruments. Quietly amusing, you think, how these medieval dreamers unknowingly set the stage for modern scientific practice through softly fumbling attempts at creating eternal youth. And then, softly chuckling to yourself, you recall perhaps the most amusing accidental discovery of all: phosphorus. Centuries after the medieval era, an alchemist, quietly heating urine in hopes of creating gold instead, stumbled softly upon this strange glowing substance, discovering quite unintentionally a material used today in matches and fertilizers. While perhaps less glamorous than immortality, this gently humorous mishap illustrates beautifully how alchemy softly persisted as science evolved, quietly whispering its gentle truths long after the medieval dream had faded. Observing your alchemist friend once more, you notice him softly smiling, perhaps quietly aware of the gentle absurdity of his profession. The softly flickering candlelight seems to dance gently across his face, creating a comforting atmosphere of quiet contemplation. Maybe you gently consider immortality was never the true goal, but rather the peaceful, endless exploration, the gentle art of chasing questions without urgently needing answers. You quietly step back, feeling gently amused, yet deeply appreciative of alchemy's softly humorous legacy. The sleepy rhythm of trial, error, discovery, and softly ironic accident defined an era, nudging humanity gently forward, even while immortality and gold remained softly elusive. Perhaps alchemy's true immortality was its gentle persistence in the human imagination, quietly surviving centuries, softly resonating in modern science, art, and storytelling. With a final glance around the workshop, gently illuminated by flickering candles, and softly glowing moonlight, you quietly realize that the alchemist Essa labors, filled with softly humorous mishaps and unintended successes, represents something gently universal about humanity itself. We dream, we experiment, we softly fail, yet somehow, through gentle perseverance and sleepy curiosity, we move quietly forward. Feeling softly contented by this realization, you begin to retreat quietly, leaving your alchemist friend calmly stirring his potion, gently humming under his breath. Perhaps tomorrow he'll discover something remarkable, likely by accident. Tonight, though, he remains peacefully immersed in his quiet task, softly unaware that he too is part of history's gentle comedy, chasing immortality, but gently stumbling upon far simpler, quietly charming discoveries instead. As the softly ticking hours drift onward, you watch your alchemist friend adjust his cloak, stretching gently before returning to his work table. Tonight, S experiment has taken on a new dimension, not just a personal quest, but one quietly supported by the most powerful patrons in the land. You glance curiously at a sealed parchment resting nearby, its wax seal embossed with a royal crest. Why would kings, queens, and nobles, comfortably surrounded by wealth, be drawn so eagerly to these softly glowing promises of immortality? You step closer as your alchemist unseals the letter with deliberate care. Inside, the elegant script of a noble hand politely commissions him to pursue, yet again, the elixir of life, and, if time permits, the transformation of lead into gold. You softly smile at the phrasing, immortality first, gold second. It seems even medieval royalty had their priorities gently in order. Throughout Europe, noble houses quietly funded alchemists, offering gold, land, and even protection in exchange for these gentle promises of eternal youth and unending riches. Historians still argue whether these patrons truly believed the alchemists would succeed, or if they simply found the softly whispered hope too enticing to resist. After all, when one ruled kingdoms rife with treachery and uncertain health, a bit of calm reassurance from the local alchemist likely brought soothing comfort. And so, behind the high stone walls of castles and manors, many a royal laboratory softly hummed with activity. The allure was irresistible: a potion to stave off death, a stone to replenish empty coffers, a quiet edge over rival courts. If immortality was even remotely possible, what ruler could calmly ignore such a prize? Your alchemist friend had once served such a court himself. As he sips quietly from a worn cup of mead, he recalls these softly tense days, surrounded by courtiers and advisors, each watching with thinly veiled impatience. He had worked calmly under immense pressure. Nobles, he learned, possessed little of an alchemist's gentle patience. Weeks, months, even years of careful experimentation were met with softly exasperated sighs and veiled threats. Immortality, it seemed, was expected to arrive swiftly, perhaps by next Tuesday. Yet there were advantages to royal patronage. With noble funding came rare ingredients, the finest equipment, and access to manuscripts otherwise hidden in distant monasteries or foreign courts. These gentle boons allowed alchemists to broaden their experiments, pursuing new avenues softly impossible in a modest workshop. Many of history's great alchemists, such as John Dee in England and Paracelsus in Europe, benefited from such support, their gentle reputations soaring even as their search for true immortality quietly fell short. You softly imagine these royal patrons seated in their grand halls beneath towering tapestries, sipping spiced wine while dreaming of a life unburdened by aging. A softly humorous thought crosses your mind. What would they have done with such endless years? Rule forever, commission more tapestries, finally read all those dusty books lining their libraries? One suspects many a medieval monarch had not fully considered the practicalities of eternal existence. Quietly amused, you turn your gaze back to your alchemist friend. He gently rolls up the royal letter, sliding it into a carved box already stuffed with similar commissions. It's clear that he values these noble requests, but perhaps values more the freedom they provide to continue his gentle work without the distractions of courtly life. The relationship between alchemists and their patrons was a dance of quiet mutual benefit and soft deception. Alchemists needed funds, nobles needed hope. Both parties, you suspect, were quietly aware of the improbability of success, yet the transaction continued, lubricated by gentle flattery and carefully worded promises. Alchemists rarely guaranteed results, only that they pursued them with the utmost care and eternal patience. It was a softly brilliant strategy, yet dangers lurked within these royal relationships. When patience wore thin, accusations of fraud could swiftly replace generous patronage. Many an alchemist found themselves quietly imprisoned, or worse, when their experiments failed to deliver the softly glowing miracles so eagerly desired. Thus, the wisest alchemists, like your friend here, learned to cultivate gentle ambiguity, couching their findings in philosophical terms and poetic metaphor, allowing them to quietly slip from blame when the inevitable disappointment arrived. Even so, the allure of noble patronage remained irresistible. For those willing to navigate the softly treacherous waters of court politics, royal support offered unparalleled opportunities to advance their craft. Some even found themselves elevated to positions of quiet power, becoming trusted advisors and confidants to rulers entranced by the gentle mysteries of alchemy. As the candles burn lower, your alchemist friend leans back in his chair, gazing softly at the flickering flames. He knows well the risks of such relationships, having quietly escaped a royal court years ago when a particularly impatient duke grew weary of poetic progress reports. Now, in this humble workshop, funded by a mix of discreet, noble gifts and the occasional commissioned potion, he works at his own pace, free from the softly oppressive gaze of royal expectations. You reflect gently on the timeless nature of this dynamic, how those in power often seek to tame the unknown, while those who explore it must balance truth with softly crafted hope. As your alchemist friend resumes his work, you sense a deep calm in the room. Here, free from the gilded pressures of noble halls, the pursuit of immortality becomes once more a gentle personal quest, driven not by the demands of kings, but by a quiet curiosity that defies the passing of centuries. And so, the experiment continues, softly and patiently, as it always has. Another night, another mixture, another step along the endless path. Immortality may remain forever just beyond reach, but the softly persistent dream lives on, nurtured by candlelight, curiosity, and the quiet hope that perhaps, tomorrow, the elixir will finally flow. The night deepens as you settle into a quieter corner of the workshop. The steady ticking of a water clock keeps gentle time with the rhythmic bubbling of a small alembic near the hearth. You notice the alchemist now glancing at a small chart pinned to the wall, a neatly illustrated lunar calendar. He traces the phases of the moon with a soft fingertip, pausing at the slender crescent currently hanging in the sky. You realize then that tonight's experiment was chosen for a reason. Medieval alchemists believed, often with quiet conviction, that the moon's phases influenced the success of their work. In fact, many experiments were scheduled not by convenience or supply, but by these softly glowing cycles in the heavens. Historians still argue whether this lunar devotion was purely symbolic, or if alchemists genuinely believed their furnaces and mixtures responded to the subtle tug of celestial bodies. Either way, it added a gently enchanting ritual to their nightly routines. Alchemy as a cosmic dance, paced by silver light. Your alchemist friend stands, donning a thick cloak against the cool air, and gestures softly for you to follow. You both step into the courtyard, where the moon gleams faintly behind wisps of cloud. The air is crisp, fragrant with distant herbs and the faintest trace of smoke. He raises a slender rod, part pointer, part ritual tool, and measures the moon's angle with practiced ease. You watch, curious, as he softly murmurs words in Latin, not as an incantation, but as a soothing part of the process. The act is less about summoning magic than aligning oneself with the natural rhythms of the world. In a time when life was uncertain and nature's moods mysterious, such rituals offered a calming sense of order. Returning inside, the alchemist adjusts a few instruments, changes the angle of a mirror to better catch the moonlight, and lights another candle. The experiment continues, this time with soft attention to timing and phase. Even the most pragmatic alchemists included moon phases in their records, noting gentle correlations between celestial events and the quality of their results. Of course, you think with a smile, it's equally likely that they were simply covering all bases. If an experiment failed, it was easier to say the moon was unfavorable than to admit human error. A timeless excuse, cosmic forces beyond one's control. Yet beneath this softly practical hedging lies a deeper truth. Alchemy, for all its mystical trappings, was rooted in close observation of nature. Alchemists were among the most dedicated of medieval stargazers, tracking not only lunar phases, but planetary alignments, eclipses, and subtle shifts in the night sky. These gentle observations laid early foundations for the science of astronomy, even if the motives were softly alchemical rather than purely scientific. You glance again at the moon chart. Beside it hangs a small parchment listing preferred phases for various alchemical tasks. Waxing crescent, best for beginnings, growth, and youth. Full moon, ideal for completing mixtures, charging elixirs. Waning moon, discouraged for new preparations. Favored for cleansing and distillation. A softly practical lunar guide, blending science and superstition with charming harmony. The alchemist returns to his table, carefully selecting ingredients. Tonight's goal appears to be an elixir of longevity, prepared under this gently auspicious crescent moon. He begins slowly heating a mixture of rose water, powdered pearl, and herbs harvested earlier from his quiet garden. The process is deliberate, almost meditative, a ritual of patience and trust in both earth and sky. As he stirs, you notice another gentle ritual. He softly taps the side of the vessel 3 times before adding the next ingredient. Some say this was done to dispel impurities or align the mixture with cosmic harmony. Others suggest it was simply habit, one of countless small gestures that brought comfort and focus to long, lonely hours of work. The air grows warmer, fragrant with floral and mineral notes. You feel the soothing pull of sleep in this dim, cozy space, lulled by the gentle sounds of liquid simmering and the rhythmic scratch of the alchemist S quill recording each step. Timeless calm, you reflect on the universal human desire to find meaning in patterns, whether in the stars, the moon, or the quiet cycles of life and death. Perhaps alchemy's reliance on lunar phases was less about celestial influence and more about creating a framework for hope and continuity. When progress was slow and immortality elusive, the moon offered a gentle reminder that time moves in cycles, that each phase brings new opportunity. As the experiment nears completion, the alchemist carefully decants the mixture into a small glass vial. It glows faintly, a trick of the candlelight, or perhaps something more. He corks it with practiced ease, marking the date and lunar phase on a label with delicate script. Another small step toward the eternal, or perhaps simply another vial for the growing shelf of hopeful brews. Either way, the process itself has been its own quiet reward, a night spent in harmony with the cosmos, guided by ancient wisdom and gentle curiosity. As the alchemist extinguishes one candle, leaving the room bathed in soft, silvery moonlight, you sense a profound peace here. The stars and moon have watched over countless such nights, each one a tiny part of humanity's softly persistent quest to understand life, nature, and the mysteries beyond. Perhaps immortality is not a potion or a stone, but the quiet continuation of this search. The knowledge that long after we are gone, others will look to the same moon and wonder softly, too. The moon hangs high now, softly silver against the deep velvet of the sky. Back in the warmly lit workshop, your alchemist friend tends to a new phase of tonight's work, one that hums with the quiet rhythm of centuries, the maintenance and tending of the furnaces. If the heart of alchemy is transformation, then the furnace is its softly smoldering soul. You watch as he adjusts a small bellows, coaxing the coals to a low, steady glow. The furnace is squat and round, made of thick clay, its surface darkened by years of gentle use. It radiates a deep warmth, not the searing heat of a blacksmith's forge, but a soothing, sustained pulse, like the slow breathing of some ancient creature. Medieval alchemists called this vital tool an athanor, meaning the undying. Its design allowed for continuous, gentle heat over long stretches of time, sometimes days, weeks, or even months. The slow fires of the athanor mirrored the alchemist's own mindset, patient, steady, unhurried. You can almost hear its quiet message. Good things unfold gently. Tending such a furnace was an art in itself. Too hot and delicate mixtures would burn away. Too cool and reactions would falter. The alchemist's hand, guided by experience and a soft intuition honed through endless hours of observation, must maintain the perfect balance. You watch him pause, feel the warmth with an outstretched palm, and make a subtle adjustment to the airflow. Historians still argue whether the rituals around the athanor were purely practical or tinged with a deeper symbolism. To many alchemists, its steady flame represented the eternal, an earthly echo of the cosmic fires that fuel the stars. Keeping it alive was both a technical challenge and a spiritual discipline. A gently burning furnace meant that the work, the quest, and hope itself endured. And what of the vessels within? You glimpse crucibles, retorts, and small flasks arranged within the furnace chamber. Some hold metals, lead, tin, copper, patiently waiting to be transformed. Others contain herbal infusions, mineral solutions, and the occasional enigmatic mixture known only to the alchemist's private notes. You notice that he checks one particular flask with care, lifting it with iron tongs and inspecting its faintly glowing contents. It holds a concoction prepared earlier under the crescent moon's gentle gaze. The liquid inside shimmers softly, hinting at unseen processes unfolding within. Alchemy's methods were a curious blend of what we now call chemistry and ritual. The belief was that the furnace, when tended with care and intention, acted as more than just a heat source. It became a crucible of transformation, not only of matter, but of the alchemist's own spirit. The process mirrored the personal path toward enlightenment, purification through steady fire, shedding impurities, revealing something finer beneath. You imagine the quiet discipline required to keep this fire alive through long, cold nights. Some alchemists assigned apprentices to watch over the athanor in shifts, ensuring its gentle pulse never faltered. There are softly humorous stories of apprentices dozing off mid-watch, only to be roused by their master's gentle, or occasionally not so gentle, admonishments. Sleep was a luxury traded for the dream of discovery. In this very room, you sense the hours slipping by unnoticed. The furnace hums steadily, casting a flickering glow on the alchemist's face as he consults a well-thumbed manuscript. The text describes a multi-stage process: calcination, dissolution, coagulation, each step requiring careful timing and precise heat. It is less a recipe than a slow ritual, each phase unfolding with patient grace. The alchemist begins the next stage, adding a measured pinch of powdered quartz to one vessel. You watch as the mixture reacts softly, forming delicate bubbles that rise and burst with gentle sighs. It is oddly soothing to witness alchemy as a kind of slow-motion symphony of elements, composed by flame and time. Nearby, a second furnace lies dormant, its clay surface cool to the touch. You learn that many alchemists kept multiple furnaces, each tailored to different stages of the work. Some required gentle warmth, others demanded brief bursts of intense heat. Managing them all required not just skill, but a deep, almost meditative patience. Your alchemist friend smiles faintly as he adjusts a vent. He seems to know each quirk of this ancient furnace, responding with the practiced ease of one who has spent countless nights in its softly radiant company. It is not merely a tool, it is a companion in the long, gentle pursuit of the unattainable. And therein lies a softly amusing truth. For all its mystical aspirations, alchemy was deeply physical. The philosopher's musings, the poetic treatises, the cosmic metaphors, all ultimately depended on this steady, smoky heart of the workshop. No grand theory could bypass the need for fire, for careful hands, for patient tending of stubborn materials. As you sit quietly, watching the dance of shadows cast by the flickering furnace light, you sense the alchemist's calm acceptance of this paradox. His quest spans the sublime and the mundane, the philosophical and the practical. In this moment, as the furnace breathes Softly beside him, the boundary between these realms seems to dissolve. Perhaps you muse, the Athanor itself embodies the deeper lesson of alchemy: immortality, perfection, enlightenment. They are not achieved in sudden flashes of brilliance, but through slow, steady devotion, through the gentle tending of one's inner fire, night after patient night. The mixture in the flask simmers on, its final transformation still uncertain, but the fire burns steadily, as it has for countless alchemists before and will for those yet to come. And in that softly glowing promise of continuity, there lies a kind of immortality after all. You shift softly in your seat, the gentle warmth of the Athanor, a welcome comfort against the cool night. The alchemist, having checked his simmering mixture, now steps over to a worn chest tucked beneath a heavy shelf. From within, he draws an ancient scroll, its edges frayed, its surface softened by centuries of quiet handling. Carefully unrolling it on the work table, he gestures for you to lean closer. What unfolds before you is a map, not of lands or seas, but of alchemical knowledge across continents. The scroll traces the winding paths of ideas, symbols, and practices that have traveled softly from one culture to another, blending and evolving over the ages. You trace the lines with your eyes. Here, the Egyptian sun disk, an early symbol of transformation and eternal life. There, the serpent devouring its own tail, the Ouroboros, an emblem of cycles and rebirth adopted across the ancient world. These images, you realize, have quietly migrated through centuries, carried by traders, scholars, and wandering mystics. Alchemy's roots run deep and wide, far beyond medieval Europe's stone towers and shadowed workshops. Its gentle currents flowed first through ancient Egypt, where the practice of chemia, the art of transmutation, sought to perfect metals and preserve life. From there, through trade routes and conquests, it passed softly into the hands of Greek philosophers who wrapped it in the language of metaphysics and cosmology. The scroll's lines wind further east. In China, the Taoist pursuit of immortality took on its own quietly enchanting form. Alchemists in imperial courts sought the elixir of life, experimenting with jade, mercury, and herbal infusions. Their work intertwined spiritual discipline with practical chemistry, breathing exercises, meditation, and dietary practices designed to harmonize body and cosmos. Historians still debate whether these Eastern and Western traditions influenced one another directly, or if their gentle similarities arose from the shared human longing to transcend time. Yet along the ancient silk routes, ideas and texts undoubtedly traveled, exchanged in bustling markets beneath softly colored awnings, translated in the dim alcoves of desert caravanserais. Your alchemist friend now points to the map's western branches. From the Greco-Egyptian city of Alexandria, alchemical texts flowed softly into the Islamic world, preserved and expanded upon by scholars in Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba. Figures like Jabir ibn Hayyan, known in Europe as Geber, crafted detailed treatises on distillation, crystallization, and purification. Their work, written in elegant Arabic script, would later cross quietly into medieval Europe, sparking a renaissance of alchemical thought. You imagine the scene: manuscripts bundled carefully onto the backs of camels, carried across dusty plains and verdant valleys. In the scriptoriums of European monasteries, these texts were pored over by eager scholars, their eyes wide with wonder at the knowledge of distant lands. The wisdom of China, India, Persia, and Arabia flowed gently into Europe's alchemical streams, enriching them with new symbols, techniques, and dreams. The alchemist lifts another scroll, this one filled with curious symbols and annotations in Latin, Greek, and Arabic, jumbled together in a gentle tapestry of cross-cultural thought. Here lies the beauty of alchemy. It is not the property of any one place or people, but a softly woven story of shared aspiration. As you observe, you notice subtle differences in emphasis. European alchemists often pursued the philosopher's stone and gold. Chinese alchemists sought bodily immortality and spiritual harmony. Indian alchemists, practicing rasayana, blended metallurgy with Ayurveda, aiming to rejuvenate life and spirit. Yet beneath these varied goals, a common thread persists: the gentle belief that nature holds hidden keys to perfection. If only one observes with patience and reverence. The alchemist, eyes twinkling, adds a softly spoken comment. Truth has many languages, and wisdom many homes. You nod, sensing the quiet truth in his words. In this workshop, beneath the moon's steady gaze, the work of distant cultures converges in a single, softly smoldering quest. And what of the future? You ponder this as the alchemist carefully rolls up the scroll. Even today, the legacy of these ancient exchanges persists. Modern chemistry, pharmacology, and material science owe much to the patient observations and gentle curiosities of alchemists across continents. Their quest for immortality may have been softly misguided, but their methods quietly seeded the scientific revolution. You smile softly at this thought. The alchemist's dream was always larger than themselves, transcending borders and epochs. Each borrowed symbol, each translated text, each shared technique became a thread in a vast, unending tapestry of human wonder. The workshop, once again bathed in quiet candlelight, seems to hum with this unseen connection. The air feels thicker with meaning, as though the whispers of long-departed alchemists linger still, urging patience, reverence, and the gentle pursuit of understanding. Your alchemist friend, content with the night's reflection, returns the scroll to its resting place. He tends the furnace once more, its pulse a quiet echo of the timeless fires that have warmed countless other workshops across the world. And you, watching softly, sense anew that this gentle quest for transformation, of metals, of life, of understanding, belongs to us all. Whether beneath Egyptian sun or Chinese moon, in Persian courts or European towers, the alchemical spirit burns quietly on. Back within the soft glow of the workshop, you notice a shift in the alchemist's mood. A faint smile, a twinkle of playfulness in his eyes. He reaches for a modest wooden box and opens it with care. Inside lie sealed letters, small tokens, and scraps of parchment bearing curious symbols and unfamiliar signatures. Here is another side of alchemy's story: the quiet world of rivalries, secret correspondences, and softly waged competitions. You lean in, intrigued. For all their lofty ideals and calming philosophies, alchemists were still human, sometimes gently ambitious, sometimes stubborn, and often delightfully competitive. The pursuit of immortality and gold attracted not only earnest seekers, but also charlatans, egotists, and the occasional mischievous prankster. Historians still argue whether these rivalries drove genuine progress or simply created an atmosphere of charming chaos. But one thing is clear: medieval alchemists competed quietly but fiercely, each believing, deep down, that their approach was the truest, gentlest path to the philosopher's stone. Your alchemist friend selects a letter tied with faded ribbon. He unfolds it carefully, revealing neat script in an unfamiliar hand. A colleague, or perhaps a friendly rival from a distant city. The tone is polite, but beneath the flowery greetings lies a clear subtext. My latest elixir shows great promise, far superior to the mixture we discussed last spring. You can almost hear the gentle challenge in those words, the subtle nudge to inspire or provoke further experimentation. This was how alchemists often communicated: softly veiled boasts, carefully worded hints, and the occasional teasing jab. Rivalries were rarely declared outright, but they simmered beneath the surface, adding a quiet spice to an otherwise patient discipline. In some cases, competition took on a more theatrical form. Alchemists seeking noble patronage might demonstrate their skills before skeptical courts, producing small displays of transmutation or concocting elixirs on command. Success meant wealth and status. Failure, quiet humiliation, or worse. Your alchemist friend chuckles softly as he recounts one such tale. An overconfident alchemist, eager to impress a local duke, promised to transmute a lump of lead into gold before the entire court. Unfortunately, his method involved a sleight of hand trick that failed at the crucial moment. The resulting spectacle was less one of awe and more of barely suppressed laughter. Though the duke, not known for gentle humor, was less amused. The poor alchemist vanished quietly from the court soon after. Yet rivalries weren't always so public or perilous. Many unfolded through the slow exchange of manuscripts, where scholars pored over each other's work with a mix of admiration and critical scrutiny. Annotations in the margins, sometimes supportive, sometimes gently mocking, provided a running commentary that spanned years and crossed borders. One scroll your alchemist retrieves bears just such a record. The original treatise, penned in flowing Latin, proposes a complex method for purifying mercury. Along the margins, a later reader has scribbled a soft critique. An elegant theory, but impractical, requires 7 days of heating without interruption. Who among us has 7 days to waste? Another hand has replied beneath, speak for yourself. Some of us are more patient than others. You smile, imagining these long ago scholars engaged in their quiet, paper-bound debates, an alchemical dialogue stretching across time, fueled by equal parts curiosity and gentle pride. Of course, not all rivalries remained so playful. Accusations of fraud could end careers or lives. In an era where belief in alchemy's potential was genuine and hope for immortality deeply felt, the line between sincere effort and deception was dangerously thin. Some alchemists walked this line with care. Others stumbled across it, often with softly disastrous results. Your alchemist, it seems, has chosen a quieter path. Content to pursue his work at his own pace, he maintains cordial relations with fellow practitioners, exchanging letters and occasional visits, but steering clear of grand promises or public demonstrations. It is a wise approach, born of experience and perhaps a few softly learned lessons. Yet even he is not immune to the subtle thrill of competition. As he seals a new letter to a colleague, you catch a glimpse of the closing line, I look forward to your next report. May it be as promising as mine. A gentle challenge delivered with a smile, you reflect on how this quietly competitive spirit mirrors broader human nature. Whether in alchemy, art, or science, we are drawn to measure ourselves against others, not out of malice, but from a deep-seated desire to improve, to surpass, to leave our own small mark upon the world. And in the case of medieval alchemists, these rivalries, veiled in politeness, spiced with humor, shadowed by risk, helped drive the slow evolution of their craft. For every false claim or failed demonstration, there were genuine insights, new methods, and occasional flashes of brilliance that gently advanced the field. As the alchemist places his sealed letter into a wooden box ready for the next courier, you sense a quiet satisfaction. The work continues, the dialogue endures, and the gentle game of one-upmanship provides its own subtle motivation. In the softly competitive world of alchemy, it seems immortality was not only a goal, but also a kind of contest, one measured not merely in years gained, but in ideas exchanged and legacies quietly left behind. You lean back, watching the gentle interplay of shadows on the workshop walls. The furnace hums softly, letters await their journey, and somewhere in another dimly lit room, a fellow alchemist is no doubt crafting his own reply, equally determined to prove that his method is the gentlest, truest, and most promising of all. The workshop is quieter now, the energy of the earlier hours settling into something softer, more contemplative. Your alchemist friend sits peacefully beside the furnace, reviewing a worn volume bound in cracked leather. You sense he's not searching for new recipes tonight, nor chasing immortal formulas. How far he and alchemy itself has come. You ease into a nearby chair, and as he turns a page with gentle fingers, the mood shifts from restless curiosity to something closer to gratitude. In many ways, Alchemy-ES quest for eternal life and transmutation has already succeeded, just not in the ways its early practitioners may have imagined. Slowly, over generations, the mystical, moonlit world of alchemy gave way to something more structured, more skeptical, yet no less magical in its own right. From the soot-streaked workshops of the past emerged the field we now call chemistry. Historians still argue exactly when the shift happened. There was no single moment, no sudden extinguishing of the old fires. Rather, the change unfolded quietly, like dawn overtaking a night sky. The mystical language of the alchemists gradually softened into the precise terminology of laboratories. Symbols turned into formulas, potions into compounds, and experimenters into scientists. You watch as your alchemist traces a familiar symbol on the page, the circle divided by a cross, once believed to represent gold, the sun, and ultimate perfection. Today, it means something different, something secular and exact. But in that transition lies a gentle truth. The spirit of inquiry remained. Only the tools and explanations changed, and the contributions of alchemists to modern science are quietly staggering. Their methods of distillation, sublimation, and crystallization became foundational techniques in laboratories worldwide. Their obsession with observation and documentation, though sometimes buried under poetic metaphors, evolved into the experimental method that powers all of modern science. One name surfaces again and again in this gentle evolution: Paracelsus, a 16th century alchemist with a flair for the dramatic and an ego to match. He was among the first to propose that illness had natural causes, not demonic possession or astrological misalignment. He emphasized the use of minerals and chemicals in medicine, nudging healing slowly from mysticism toward pharmacology. And then there's Robert Boyle, whose 17th century experiments are considered the beginning of modern chemistry. Boyle was deeply influenced by alchemical thought, yet he demanded rigor, repeatability, and clarity. His insistence on testing over theorizing quietly became the scientific gospel. And still, Boyle kept his foot softly in both worlds, continuing to seek the philosopher's stone long after publishing his famous gas law. You glance around the workshop, sensing how the two worlds overlap even now. There's a mortar and pestle beside a copper still. A shelf holds both herbal tonics and acid flasks. The alchemist himself, dressed in robes of his own making, looks just as comfortable, invoking Hermes Trismegistus as he would discussing Boyle's experiments. He exists in the liminal space between belief and measurement, mystery and proof. You gently consider how comforting that is. Not everything needs to be resolved or proven to be meaningful. Alchemy's strange, slow progress didn't fail. It simply changed costume, quietly slipping into a lab coat and goggles. And it brought with it not just tools, but also habits of thought, that the natural world is worth studying, that transformation is possible, that even the most mundane substance might contain hidden marvels. And what of the dreams it left behind? The pursuit of immortality didn't vanish. It was simply translated. Today, scientists study aging at the cellular level. Longevity researchers investigate telomeres, DNA damage, and caloric restriction, building gently on the alchemist's original hope. And gold? Transmutation is no longer an act of wizardry, but of nuclear physics. Particle accelerators can technically turn lead into gold, though the cost of doing so is, well, let's say the philosopher's stone is still winning in the practicality department. You chuckle softly at that, imagining the look on your alchemist friend S face if you tried to explain subatomic particles and isotopes, but perhaps he wouldn't be surprised. After all, the essence of alchemy was always about revealing the hidden nature of things. Whether through symbols or microscopes, the goal is the same: to peel back the world's jarry outer layer and glimpse what lies beneath. The alchemist closes the book with a soft thump and sets it aside. He stands, stretches, and pours a bit of herbal tea into two small ceramic cups. You take yours with a nod of thanks. The brew is warm, gently bitter, with notes of lemon balm and fennel. Perhaps not eternal youth in a cup, but close enough for tonight. You sip slowly, feeling the calm settle in. Around you, the tools of alchemy rest in thoughtful stillness. The night carries on, and you realize that what you were witnessing here is not just history, it is a conversation across time, the slow unfolding of human curiosity, expressed in 1,000 different languages, tools, and beliefs. So yes, alchemy transformed, but its spirit remains, alive in every experiment, every quiet observation, every unanswered question. The alchemist gazes into his tea for a long moment, then offers a gentle thought. Perhaps we were never meant to find immortality, only to search for it with care. You nod, cradling your cup, warmed by more than just the liquid inside. And in the quiet of the workshop, with the scent of herbs in the air, and centuries of curiosity resting gently on the shelves, you can almost believe it. You sip the last of your tea as the alchemist moves quietly to another shelf, this one less grand than the towering volumes of alchemical lore, but somehow more intriguing. Small notebooks, loose papers, and a handful of simple cloth-bound codices rest there, humble in appearance, yet gently powerful in what they represent. These, the alchemist murmurs softly, belonged to women. You lean in, curiosity stirring anew. The common image of medieval alchemy is dominated by men, bearded scholars in pointed hats, cloaked in secrecy. But here, in this quiet corner of the workshop, lies evidence of another story. Women, too, practiced alchemy, often behind the scenes, sometimes at great risk, yet leaving a legacy of quiet resilience and discovery. Historians still argue about the extent of women's roles in medieval alchemy. Many of their contributions went unrecorded or were softly attributed to male relatives or mentors. But traces remain if one knows where to look. And your alchemist friend, clearly a man of broad sympathies, has made it a gentle mission to preserve these traces. He opens one small notebook with care. The handwriting is elegant and steady. The name on the first page, Maria Prophetessa, or Mary the Jewess. Though her life remains shrouded in mystery, she is often credited with inventing early distillation apparatus, including the Bain Marie, a double boiler still used in kitchens and laboratories today. You smile softly at this. It is comforting to think that a simple tool used to melt chocolate or gently heat sauces has its roots in the work of a pioneering female alchemist. Immortality may remain elusive, but culinary joy, that, apparently, was well within reach. The notebook contains descriptions of equipment, subtle observations about the properties of metals, and reflections on the alchemical process itself. Unlike the grand treatises of her male counterparts, Maria's writings are practical, quietly focused on technique and experience. You sense in them a different kind of wisdom, rooted not in cosmic metaphor, but in the tactile realities of flame, vessel, and material. Your alchemist friend turns next to a bundle of letters penned by Cleopatra the Alchemist, another elusive figure whose surviving writings hint at both practical skill and deep philosophical insight. Cleopatra, it seems, viewed the alchemical quest as a mirror of inner transformation, a process as much about purifying the soul as transmuting metals. As you read a translated passage aloud, its tone strikes a different chord. The fire that perfects the stone must first refine the heart. One cannot separate the two. You sit with this thought for a moment. In a field so often dominated by competition and secrecy, here is a voice gently urging balance, integrity, and inner clarity. Perhaps it is no accident that such wisdom came from the margins, where the pursuit of power and prestige burned less fiercely. Throughout Europe, other women quietly pursued alchemy, often within the relative safety of convents. Nuns experimented with herbal elixirs, cosmetics, and medicines, preserving and advancing knowledge, while their more famous male counterparts chased grander and riskier ambitions. In these cloistered spaces, the work of transformation continued, often with a distinctly nurturing focus. One such figure was Trotula of Salerno, a physician whose texts on women's health included practical alchemical remedies. Though her identity was later obscured and debated, her influence endured, shaping both medicine and alchemical practice across generations. You picture these women, hidden from the official annals of history, yet stirring pots, recording observations, testing and refining formulas by the light of simple lamps. Their contributions were often quietly absorbed into broader traditions, their names fading while their work lived on. Your alchemist friend closes the notebook and replaces it gently on the shelf. They remind us, he says softly, that knowledge belongs to no one alone. It passes through many hands, seen and unseen. You nod, feeling the weight of this truth. Alchemy, for all its grand visions and secretive airs, was a profoundly collective endeavor, and within its history, the quiet persistence of women, writing, experimenting, teaching, adds a layer of richness often overlooked, and perhaps there is a kind of poetic justice in this. The pursuit of immortality, so often cast as a quest for personal glory, finds its truest expression in the unnoticed endurance of shared knowledge. The flame passed from hand to hand, each contribution woven into the fabric of understanding. You glance around the workshop again. How many of these herbs, these vessels, these techniques trace their lineage back through unnamed women? How many insights preserved here first bloomed in convent gardens or kitchen stills? The thought is quietly humbling. Your alchemist friend pours another cup of tea, his expression thoughtful. One must honor the unseen, he says simply, and in this moment, you sense that he does, not only through reverence for these writings, but through the very spirit of his work. In this gentle space, the alchemical quest is not a solitary race for fame or fortune. It is a conversation, a long, winding dialogue shaped by countless voices. Some shouted, others whispered, but all, in their way, contributed to the eternal dream of transformation. And perhaps, as the candlelight flickers and the shadows stretch softly across the room, this is the truest kind of immortality, not in a potion or a stone, but in the shared, continuous unfolding of knowledge, generation after gentle generation. The workshop grows still, the air tinged with the gentle warmth of the furnace and the fading perfume of steeped herbs. Your alchemist friend, perhaps sensing the shift in the night's rhythm, rises from his chair and walks softly to a small, dust-laden cabinet near the back of the room. Its doors creak faintly as he opens them, revealing rows of aged scrolls and brittle codices, forgotten alchemical texts waiting patiently in the quiet. You move closer as he selects one from the shelf, its cover worn nearly smooth by centuries of careful fingers. Many of these, he murmurs, are the remnants of voices long past, their wisdom and their follies. His tone is fond, tinged with respect. For all its ambition, alchemy was as much about persistence as about perfection, and sometimes gentle humility. He opens the book carefully. The script within is elegant, but faded, its margins filled with cryptic symbols and cryptic commentary from unknown hands. This is one of countless forgotten alchemical texts, lost to the march of modern science, dismissed by later scholars, yet still rich with the quiet yearnings of those who once sought the eternal. Historians still argue about the significance of these writings. Were they practical guides, veiled metaphors for spiritual growth, or elaborate puzzles meant only for the initiated? The truth likely varies from one to the next. Many were copied and recopied across generations, each scribe adding notes, altering recipes, sometimes introducing gentle errors that further obscured the original meaning. As your alchemist friend turns the pages, you glimpse diagrams of celestial alignments, intricate glassware, and recipes that range from plausible to whimsically absurd. One passage details a lengthy process for creating the quintessence of life, involving rare resins, powdered gemstones, and the breath of a white dove gathered at dawn. You smile softly. Even in their most elaborate constructions, these texts hum with a kind of poetic hope. And that, perhaps, is why they still matter in an age before modern science, when so much of nature remained a mystery. These writings captured humanity's gentle determination to understand, to transform, to transcend. They offer structure and meaning where chaos and uncertainty reigned. Some texts, like the Emerald Tablet, remain famous even today. This brief, yet cryptic work, as above, so below, has inspired countless interpretations, from literal alchemical recipes to philosophical treatises on the nature of the universe. The alchemist's smile widens as he reads aloud from one such passage. Even now, he says softly, no one quite agrees on what it truly means. You reflect on this. In a world obsessed with certainty and clarity, there is something gently reassuring about an enduring mystery, one that invites endless curiosity without demanding resolution. Perhaps this is why these forgotten texts still beckon to modern minds. They remind us that not all knowledge must be mastered. Some may simply be explored, appreciated for its quiet beauty. The alchemist pulls another volume from the cabinet, this one heavier, its spine reinforced with worn leather. Inside, you find more practical notes, experiments in metallurgy, herbal distillation, early forms of chemical analysis. Here lies the bridge between alchemy and chemistry, the slow, patient accumulation of empirical knowledge that would one day fuel the scientific revolution. Yet the mystical language persists. References to the spirit of Mercury, the soul of sulfur, and the body of salt appear alongside precise measurements and procedural instructions. The alchemist's worldview was one of unity, where material and spiritual realms intertwined. To separate them fully, as later science would do, required centuries of quiet disentangling. You wonder gently what wisdom was lost in that process. In discarding the mystical language, did science also lose a certain poetic reverence for nature? The alchemist seems to ponder this as well. The old texts remind us, he says, that knowledge need not be cold. It can be warm, alive, a dialogue between mind and spirit. He closes the heavy book and returns it to its shelf with a small sigh. Many such texts remain untranslated, their secrets locked in obscure dialects or symbolic codes. Some may hold forgotten insights, others elaborate illusions. Yet all deserve their place in the tapestry of human inquiry. You glance at the shelves again, seeing not dusty relics, but a testament to centuries of gentle persistence. Every smudge of ink, every faded margin, speaks to a mind that once burned with curiosity, a mind not so different from yours or mine. In these pages, immortality was pursued not only through potions and stones, but through words and ideas carried forward by those who dared to dream. The alchemist steps back, surveying his collection with quiet pride. They may be forgotten, he says softly, but they are not lost. As long as someone reads, someone wonders, the quest continues. And you realize, perhaps this is the truest kind of immortality these alchemists achieved. Not through eternal life or golden transmutation, but through the quiet endurance of their hopes, their questions, their human longing for the infinite. You smile, warmed by this thought, in the softly flickering candlelight, surrounded by voices from ages past. You feel the gentle weight of their dreams resting lightly upon your shoulders. The forgotten texts breathe again, not as solutions to an ancient riddle, but as companions in an unending, softly wondrous journey. The hour is late now. A gentle hush has settled over the workshop, as if even the shadows have grown sleepy. The steady pulse of the Athanor continues, its embers glowing softly, but the alchemist no longer tends it. Instead, he sits quietly by the hearth, gazing into the last flickers of the evening's experiments. You settle beside him, the wooden chair creaking faintly beneath your weight. There is comfort in the stillness. After so much pursuit of gold, of wisdom, of life eternal, there comes a moment when even the most patient seeker must pause and simply be. The alchemist reaches for a small notebook, one clearly more personal than the grand volumes of earlier. Inside, his own musings unfold, not formulas or diagrams, but reflections on the nature of his quest. He reads aloud, voice low and calm. We search not to conquer nature, but to understand it, to walk gently within its mysteries. You nod. After all you've witnessed tonight, this rings true. The dream of immortality, once so dazzling, now feels softened, less about escaping death, and more about learning how to live fully in the time one has. Historians still debate why the alchemical pursuit of immortality faded. Was it the rise of modern science, sweeping away old beliefs with cool logic? Was it a growing understanding of the limits of matter and the inescapable truths of biology? Or did the dream itself evolve, finding new forms in philosophy, art, and quieter kinds of legacy? Perhaps it was all of these. But as you sit here now, with the scent of warm herbs in the air and the furnace-esque glow painting, gentle patterns on the walls, it seems the alchemist's dream was never truly about eternal life in the body. It was about eternal life in meaning, in the transformation of mind and spirit, and in the humble, hopeful passing of knowledge from one pair of hands to the next. The alchemist smiles softly, as if sensing your thoughts. We do not fail because the stone remains unfound, he says. We succeed because we continue to seek. You look around once more. The workshop is rich with this quiet success. Books worn by study, vessels stained by countless experiments, the air itself thick with the memory of years spent in gentle inquiry. Each small failure, each fleeting triumph, has become part of something larger, a softly glowing tapestry woven across time. And outside these walls, the spirit of alchemy persists, though its name may change. In every laboratory where curiosity flickers, in every artist's studio where transformation is explored, in every thinker's mind where the impossible is quietly entertained, alchemy lives on. Your alchemist friend closes his notebook and rises slowly. The night is nearly done. He extinguishes the final candle, leaving only the soft, steady heart of the furnace to light the room. You follow him to the door, where the first pale hints of dawn begin to silver the sky. As he opens the door, a cool breath of morning air stirs the room. The stars are fading, and with them, the night's gentle illusions. Yet something lingers, a quiet resolve, a softly burning curiosity that no dawn can extinguish. The alchemist turns to you one last time. Remember, he says, immortality is not a potion. It is the mark we leave upon the world, in kindness, in wisdom, in wonder. Keep seeking. You step out into the cool morning, the world before you, fresh and new. Behind you, the workshop stands silent once more, a sanctuary for gentle dreams, and within you, the soft flame of inquiry glows a little brighter, a little steadier. For in the end, the quest for immortality is the quest to live fully, to seek with humility, and to leave behind not gold or endless years, but the quiet, enduring light of understanding. Wind down. And now, the journey draws softly to a close. Let your breath slow, as if you, too, are tending a gentle inner flame. Feel the warmth of the Athanor, steady and comforting. Imagine its glow filling the workshop, and now, softly filling your own space. There is no need to chase or strive now. The alchemists taught us that the search itself is enough, that in every small effort, in every quiet night of reflection, we create something lasting. Let your body relax, melting gently into the surface beneath you. With each breath, imagine yourself releasing the day's questions, its restless energy. You are part of a great, timeless story, a seeker of understanding. And even in stillness, that story continues. The soft flicker of candlelight fades. The gentle hum of the furnace quiets. The alchemist's voice becomes a whisper, echoing softly in your mind. Keep seeking, keep wondering, and above all, rest well. Now drift gently, as if floating on a sea of ancient stars, carried by centuries of curiosity. Sleep well, dreamer. The quest will be here tomorrow. For now, simply rest